Hey folks, and welcome back to Women of Water Get Real Virtual Summit, where we are exploring where and why women are leaking from the water career pipeline, how we can stop those leaks, and even bring women back if they have stepped out and taken a break in their career pathway. And we are very fortunate here today to have our next guest, Elena Rodriguez, someone that I met through an organization I mentioned a few times, empowering women in industry. Charlie, founder of that, a woman who had started publishing Empowering Pumps in magazine, and working with a lot of people who are on the equipment side, whether it's for water, whether it's for oil and gas, whether it's for other industries as well. But certainly in water, we do a lot with pumps, we do a lot with pipes, we do a lot with big scale equipment. And I think we think a lot in the water space about the people providing the services, the utilities, the people protecting, and the environmental firms. You got the engineers, scientists, operators, all that kind of stuff. But somebody's actually building the stuff that we use for the infrastructure in the water workspace. And one of the most knowledgeable people in that space is the amazing Elena Rodriguez. Elena, welcome to the program. So glad you're here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invitation in order to participate.
Yes. And so how did you get into this? We usually start with people telling a little bit about their own personal journey. And
I started, like you have mentioned, I come from the pump industry, but I started in my early days as engineer when I was still studying in the university. By coincidence, there was a pump company in my hometown, so I asked for going like internship in 1997, so almost 26 years ago. So I've been in the pump industry in all my career. At the beginning, like train engineer, and then since 2000, I've been working in injeting as pump designer at the beginning. So more or less all how I've been growing as professional has been always been in parallel to the development of the company. And I have really seen many changes along the years about engineers in the pump industry, but also about women engineers in the pump industry.
Great. And for those of us who, if you've ever been to a conference, and not just a academic or professional conference, but especially in the industry conferences, often in addition to all the scientific presentations and hearing from policymakers, they will have an expo hall, an exposition. And, in some cases like West Tech and American Waterworks Association or IWA at the international scale, you'll have massive, big open halls, and you're just going, you get your little clicker on your waist so you can see how many steps you have. You're just walking up and down the aisles, and you're trying to figure out where you're going. And but the place is filled with, in many cases, large pieces of equipment, so people can actually see the equipment that is available. And I mean, why is that important for people to not just go to the Sears catalog and look up I want to
honestly, I have the impression, because myself, my background is pump design, the design of the hydraulic that moves, in this case, the water. So when I was in the university, but also in the company, I like touching the stuff. Even if right now it's very easy going through websites and catalogs, it's like when you see, and with the years, I think I have some tricks when I see impellers or when I see diffusers, I know the application. So at the end, it's very important to see physically the things. And it helps, in my case, it helped me much. I know that the new generation are less in that way, and they go through websites or just more virtual. I think in my generation, and also people like in between 30s and 60s, we prefer touching things.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly challenges if you are virtual, like what we're doing here of like, how do you film things to kind of capture what's really going on? How do you actually, not just step back and watch the whole thing, but really get into the mechanic? But certainly, one of the things that draws a lot of people, men and women, into water is for those of us like myself, very tactile, very kinesthetic. Very, I took a picture right before we started, because when I look at my notes, if I can see the person's face and it like takes me right back into that interview.
And in that way, I highlight everything. So many my colleagues from the university, when we remind the years in the university, and when we were taking notes, I have a full ball with a lot of pens with different colors with taking my notes. And I'm in that way right now. I have a very visual memory, so I need to take my notes in different colors. So when I need to remember something, it's just to remind the page it was writing, how it was planned. I'm very visual in that way.
Yeah. I can remember, like I look at a report or something, and if I have in my hand, I know that I'm looking for a statistic that was on a visual that was in the top left corner, and I can just flip through it. You can't flip through a website. It becomes a
website. No. I think, and checking with the young engineers in the company, they are different. I think the new generations are less paper friendly, and I need to have everything on paper. I take my notes. I still have my very first notebook when I just started in the pump industry, because it collects all my thoughts, all my reflections about design. And when I go through my notes, I remember those days.
Yes. I have my notes notepad right over there. I have it over by my bed, because I was writing some things down when I woke up this morning. I think it's important that we all understand what our learning style is and how we think about things. There is, and throughout the conference, we're talking about, that, when one woman, and we're also diverse, and part of that also includes things like neurodiversity and people who just brains are wired differently, and that often, the men who are attracted to these industries are also very tactile, kinesthetic, visual, spatial, and sometimes women who come out of degree programs in engineering or science or operators or whatever, they show up at the office and the guys are like, oh, you're a woman, you're good at communications, go do the proposals, do the reports. Oh, you're a woman, you're good with people, go do client management, go do team management. And for those of us who are much more, no, I want to actually build something.
And I think really if you really want to try this industry and being in a practical way, I think it's very important to follow the path you are really interested in. When I finished my final project and I went to the company in pump design, I'm very technical. Even if with the years my roles in the company have been changing from pure technical, going more with water engineering, a touch of sales, more being in contact with engineering firms. But that if you are technical inside, it's very important to maintain, and also to have the opportunity for trying, because maybe with the years you realize that maybe you prefer going to different ways. But if you are technical and you want to try in the R&D department, it's very important to have the opportunity. So I think you need to be really persistent, and to, even if, because maybe you are okay with the change into more other roles, but if you are technical and you want to try technical department and you have the possibility, it's important to try, and also to speak aloud, to explain to your responsible your goals, your needs, in order if those match with the companies, just for having the possibility of showing.
Absolutely. And just really making sure that we're not getting stereotyped and not getting kind of pushed. That certainly happened to me. I worked so hard to get my PhD in civil engineering, water resources planning and management, master's in environmental science and engineering, having all these skills. And yet so often I'd go into a workplace and be told, well, you're just going to focus 100% of your time on business development, which is a kiss of death if you're in a consulting firm and everything's about billable hours and you're doing something about bill. Plus, it's bad for your technical development. We're talking about it's not just school. You've got to have those opportunities to build your portfolio, build your experience, try things out. You're only as good as it's not just the number of years you've been in an industry, it's how many different projects, how many, the wealth and the breadth and the depth of experience that you have had and the different levels of leadership that you have had in those areas. And if you don't get to do that because somebody thinks you should do business development, you should do project management. We need somebody to manage a team. We need someone to do health and safety training, to do recruitment, really important things, but often not promotable.
Yeah. And in that way, I think I have been really lucky with the company I've been working in the last 23 years, because of the size of the water department or how the projects are faced. You could be technical, but also you have your relation with the consultant engineering firms. We have meetings with the end users, so you have the opportunity of having the global view of the project. So it's like we share synergies, and at the end, you are never just technical. You see everything. So with the years, if you prefer other role or being different percentage, maybe less technical and more business development, you have the options. So I think the type of the company, the water sector in Ingetim has been great for me, because I have had the opportunity for being involved in really many interesting projects. I remember, for me, for example, we just completed the low intake in the Lake Mead project, providing water to all the area of Las Vegas.
For Lake Mead and the Colorado River and in southwestern United States. Yeah, big. That's very important.
Very important job. But sometimes I have to go back. My very first project was maybe not so huge, maybe it was not in the news, because right now you just Google going to Lake Mead and you see how the drought has bring a lot of challenges to the area. So participating in a job that solves the water issue in a very important region in the US, you feel really proud. But at the end, when I was working with a team in the job, we feel like, okay, we are making something that will help to the people living in the area. So I feel like I have had opportunities, and in that case, I've been really lucky.
Yeah. And it's a great point, because so much emphasis was put starting 10, 15 years ago on, we need better communications in water, we need to raise awareness, and so much is so crisis focused that there's actually a diagnosable form of depression around climate anxiety, right? Anxiety, not depression, but similar mental illness around climate, because people are so overwhelmed with constant barrage of stories of how horrible things are, and this idea that we also need to communicate that there are some great solutions and that there are opportunities to be part of that solution. That's one of the best ways to get out of depression, anxiety, or whatever, is actually get out there and be able to do something.
That's for example, as engineer, participating in providing those solutions is really exciting, because at the end we know how the climate is changing and how the water resources are not being as they were in the past, and in some places we are having drought, but in other cases we are having big floods. So we have new water scenarios. So working in a pump company, providing solution for pumpings is like, I'm not saying that other business are not okay, but you feel like you are really collaborating for the wellness of the society. It's like I don't know the role we have, but we are going to participate in solving the water issue in the planet at some point.
Right. Yeah. And, I actually, always had this draw to public service and, when working in water and the environment, it's not just about STEM, and there's lots of other fields. If you're good at science, if you're good at math, if you're good at engineering, whatever, you can go do pharmaceuticals, you can go do oil and gas, you can go, manufacture, you can go code video games, whatever, lots of things you can do. But when you're in water and the environment, you're automatically dealing with humanity and the planet. And, there is that vision, there is that service that you're providing beyond just being good at science and math. Or whatever your specialty is. And when I started, where I started, I actually, I thought about doing engineering in college. My parents, were supportive of that because, it's a waste of money for Ivy League. Girls don't do well and you're just going to flunk out. But I had actually started interning for my state assemblyman in New Jersey, my state legislator, as a junior in high school. Steve Adubato, he's now got his own show as a talk show host. I spent many years. So by the time I was a couple of years out of college, I already had like 8 years of experience in legislative offices, campaigns, regulatory agencies, whatnot, talking about solving problems, creating laws and policies around solving problems. But then I ended up at an environmental consulting firm. It's like, wait a minute, they're actually doing it. They're taking a contaminated field and they're identifying the problem, they're coming up with a solution, they're implementing the solution, they're turning it into a playground. It's really, and you can point to it and say, I did that.
And at the end, we spend many hours working, and if you feel like that, with that feeling at the end of the day, at the end of the week, before the summer break, you feel like, okay, you are spending many hours working, but you feel really, really like growing as a person. This is, for sure, this is a job, but at the end, it's more than, when you are really passionate with this water industry, in my case, with the pumping solution, solving problems in the water industry, it's like not just my job, it's just me. I have like a radar. I go to Google and I'm looking for different like water projects because it's what I really like to read about, to things in my area, and to review books and magazines and making my small papers, trying to publish or to present in different congress, because at the end, I think at some point in the career, it's very important also to share the knowledge, not just the knowledge as technical knowledge, to share the experiences, because maybe you think your experiences solving problems are unique, but at the end, everything is copy-paste around the world. And it's very important, this going and attending conferences, not, for example, in WebTech, there is a big exhibition booth, but there is a very important program, like in other congress, about presenting papers, presenting case study, sharing your knowledge, not just with the community, also with consultant agencies, also with utilities that maybe are going through similar processes that you have faced with other water utilities in other parts of the world. So this sharing knowledge, for me, it's very important also in this industry.
And obviously, one of the benefits for the company, if an employee is there, they pay for your trip and it helps to promote the company, but it's not just, you're not just up there doing a sales pitch, right?
Yeah.
Really, and when you are with a consultant or a vendor, you have something that, if you're just with one utility, that system really well, but in consulting or in vending, you're working on multiple projects, and then you start, especially for those of us who are very spatial, we notice patterns, we notice trends, we notice where things are changing or where there's similarities that are cropping up, and we can bring that perspective to the industry. It can be really valuable.
Yeah, I also agree. I agree, totally agree.
So, it has, you know, and as a woman in that space, and, you know, as you mentioned, not a lot of women in the pump space, right?
No. I started, like I have mentioned, in 1997, like internal engineer. I was the only woman engineer. I was still a student, but also when I started in 2000 in the company in Ingetin, I was the only woman in the R&D department. We are only few I think right now the situation has changed, but when you attend Congress, you realize that this is a really male-dominated business. And in some cases, depending on your company or depending on your role or depending on your department, it's easy to feel isolated, like you are the only one. And even if you have your team, and for me, I have the best team that it's possible. My colleagues are incredible. I love working together because we have a group that we started more or less in the same time. So we have been working together for more than 20 years. And at the end, we know each other. I know when they change their face, what they are thinking about. So working like that is incredible. And I've been really lucky with my colleagues, but I know that this industry in some cases is complicated for the women. So that's the reason why I started networking through LinkedIn or social media, because at the end, it's also important to have a network of women working in the same industry, just to deal about similar things, experiences, or just being connected to feel less isolated, because there are some congresses when you go and you feel that you are the only one in a meeting room.
Yes.
So even if the things are changing after all these years, the change is not like climbing, it's more like this. It's going really, the speed of this change is really slow.
Right. And we can't just cram more in the front of the pipeline. We've got to increase that opportunities throughout the career. And I think especially, you know, when we look at things like, you know, the expos, and you know, people have their booths set up and everything, that there may be a number of women, but generally the women who are there are on the marketing side, right? They're you know, they're in a supporting role, and that, you know, I was really shocked when I first got out of my PhD, and I was hired to develop the water resources sector practice for a water resources engineering, you know, in an office where they had many water resources engineers and hydrogeologists and, you know, aquatic biologists and, but they were working on mining sites or landfill sites or other industries, and they wanted to look at the water sector itself. They knew I had a lot of connections, hired me. I only spoke with the principals and associates involved, who were all men in the interviews. You know, you kind of go bounce from office to office to office in these interviews. The only woman I saw was the receptionist, because I didn't go to the bullpen where all the women were in the cubicles, you know, lower levels. And but there was a woman, chief marketing officer or marketing director, whatever she was, who was married to the CFO, the chief financial officer, and she was responsible for all the admin assistants, and literally told them, because she was told when I got there, she wasn't part of the interview, which is a mistake. She was told when I got there that she was going to be supporting me on all my stuff, and she didn't like that, so she refused. I had to do all my own marketing, which is actually good practice for when you become an entrepreneur, but it wasn't all that great while I was working for a big company, trying to do all the market development, meet with clients and everything, and create all the collateral at the same time. But, telling the admin assistants, you can't work for her. She thinks she's better than everybody. And, and even like deleting files on the network and moving my office while I was out of town and mixing all my, nice neat stacks of papers of the different projects and saying, oh, that's what it looked like anyway. Like it took weeks for me to bury myself. But there can be, we've always had women in water, in admin, in marketing, in accounting, in HR. And if women who get technical degrees or law degrees or policy degrees are then kind of pushed into those roles, I don't know if that's a threat to women who are dedicated to careers in those spaces, but there could be tension sometimes, and just it's not the same, and certainly not the same level of support because their career paths are very different.
Yeah, and for example, right now we have another hydraulic engineer is a woman, electrical engineer is a woman. So I see also in Ingetin, but also in other companies, how the technical departments are being filled with other profiles that just not pure men working in the design, and then is the women are more involved in other departments. So I also dealing with colleagues that maybe are in the same business, that the things are changing. In some cases, the change is being more easy. In other ways, there are some difficulties depending on the culture, but hopefully, and it's my hope that the things will be changing, and at the end, woman, man, you can choose whatever you want at the end, more than being the tendency of the society or maybe the company. If you have if you are good in engineering and you want to try technical things, to give you the opportunity. In my case, I remember I have been in the university twice. I started like when you are 18. I went to the engineering university here in San Sebastian. I finished industrial with master in mechanical hydraulics, and I remember when I started with projects, being more involved in the water business, I realized that I had, in my opinion, a lack of knowledge maybe about installations. So I went back when I was working and going back to the university in 2008 for completing civil engineering. So at the end, I have like a very clear path in my mind. Okay, this is what I need right now, because I was really interested in the solution, just designing pumps, but also having the global idea about how the pumps are integrated in the water project. So in my case, it's like, and maybe there are some similarity to other women engineers. When you are technical and you can use your technical knowledge and maybe your skills, you have to try, and it's like the world must to give you that opportunity to show if you are able or not just to, okay, maybe but you are going to go to other department.
Right. And, we sometimes get the message as women, especially, for coaches that specialize in women or mentorship programs about women, that, I'm saying, that's just imposter syndrome. You can do whatever you want. But in these fields, you actually do have to have, the degrees, the licenses, the certifications to do certain things. It's not always necessary to say, have a BSc to do business, if you've got a background, but don't have, a PE or something, to do business development, to be a business, water business lead, for example, or, or do a lot of the field aspects or something like that. It may not be, it may be that HR just always puts it in there, or the hiring manager, well, I had to have it, and therefore everybody else has to have it. And I know we've talked to a number of people who are HR professionals, human resources professionals. There has been a move away from that degree focus, or at least in the US,
Mhm.
away from the degree focus and think more about skills. And if we want to fill all of these positions that have been opening up, and we got $1 trillion in infrastructure money, and it's not just water and wastewater, it's any infrastructure is going to have water demands and water quality impacts and water treatment requirements and everything. And you've got to, if you want to fill those spots, be a little more creative in some cases, and not just say, oh, well, if you didn't get it because of your qualifications, it must mean that you, the woman, has imposter syndrome and there's something wrong with you. It's like, no, there's actually some requirements, and and it's that balance, right?
Yeah, this is a bit, if you want to go in, for example, in the design, you need to have qualifications, you have to complete your exams, and having, it's not just, I want to, you also have to have the skills, and the skills are both way, at two ways that are complementary. You have to study, and you have to, in my case, I feel like we are, in my case, I'm always in like continuous training. If I feel by the end of 1 year, like when I was in the school, every year you have to feel that you have increased your knowledge in the task you are completing, because this is a very, the technical path in the career is not what I finished in my university in 1998. You need to be updated, and it's important you to be prepare for the new challenges, the new activities of your company. And also it's a matter of, yes, is of the company, but also of yourself, to be realistic about your capacities and to improve your knowledge, going through different training courses, going to congresses, to attending conferences, trying to present papers, things like that.
Right, and really be very conscious in your own, take ownership of your own career development, and find those people who can tell you, not just, to be a mentor or an advisor or a girl, cheer you on, which that, there's a place for that as well. There's people who pick you up when you have a bad day. But also, what specifically is required for you to advance from point A to point B. What are they looking for? What are the things that are spoken? What are the things that are unspoken? Who's gonna tell you those things, so you don't end up finding out, and one of the reasons we did this summit, we're seeing a lot of the millennials are turning 40. They're hitting that point where they're starting to say, oh, well, what's my next step? And they may find that their pathway has gone a little differently from their peers.
Yeah, at the end, and it's how I see right now. I remember when I just started, it's like you don't really know what's your next step. So having someone really close to you, maybe for support, if you find someone in the company that maybe is a little bit older than you and has going through all this, to have open conversations, because if to explain, okay, I want to be there, but how I can progress to be there. It's not just, okay, I want to do that. What I have to learn, my next step, maybe I have to deal with my responsible, maybe I need to complete some degrees, maybe I have to wait a few years until I have all the experience, because also it's important for all of us to understand that I don't have the same experiences I had when I just started in the company. So at the end, this way of growing also goes with the ages you are completing. So at the end, is good or bad experiences through the project also gives you like a jacket to finish new projects.
Yeah, I just was speaking with Portia Ingram from Coach Portia from Coach Mo Fall's Kick-Ass Career Coaching program, and just that idea that whenever we finish a project, write it down. What was the project? What did you do on it? How much was it worth? What was the problem beforehand? What did you do to solve that problem? And what was the result afterwards. And as you continue to collect those and remind yourself of those, couple one, it builds up your own confidence. It's like, oh yeah, I've done this before, right? So
yeah, that's very important. Yeah.
And it also helps document if you ever want to move up within your company or go to another organization, to be able to say, here's my accomplishments, not just, from this year to this year I worked here, from this year to this year I worked here, that you need to highlight what those accomplishments are and keep track of that. Because once you've done it, if you're like about to, change jobs, you get a layoff or whatever, then you're scrambling to do that. Just get in that habit of tracking.
Yeah.
I think having done business development, that was something that I automatically did, not only for myself, but for everyone in our group, that every time they got on a project, we had like a master resume, and just keep adding a project and doing it while it's fresh in your mind, and I could just walk in and, hey, tell me about the project, right?
And also, as professional, if you take your notes, not just explaining the project, also the difficulties you went through in terms technical, maybe, because that helps for the next project. Because when you are really blocked in a project, sometimes you think that this is unique, and at the end, if you really go through the problem, you realize that it's not unique. Maybe it's just a matter of reviewing previous notes. Maybe not you, maybe another colleague went through this issue in the past, making calculations or making reflections. So it's very important to have like a summary of all the notes by the end of each project.
Right. And and we also, that's also come up, that keeping track of things as they happen, and keeping, we talked about the notebook, whether it's a notebook, whether it's a file you have on your personal computer, that you're writing, that you're tracking this stuff with dates, with times, because unfortunately, sometimes there is discrimination that happens at the workplace, or harassment that happens at the workplace. And if you write it down with the date and time, that's going to help your case, whether it's a court case or whether it's just sitting down with people in authority and say, look, this happened on this date. This happened again a year later. This happened again 6 months later. This is a pattern. Then it's not just, oh, can you prove it? Oh, well, maybe you're just making it up. Maybe it's just all in your head. Oh, I'm sure that wasn't what they meant, right? That these are good habits to get into as professionals in the workplace.
I think in my case, for example, I remember when I was taking notes in the university, the first thing before each class was to write the day. So I have all the classes with the date they happen. It's something I do every morning before taking notes. I write the day. So what happened that day, so I went through my notes all, and I highlight once again with my this colorful blacks, like notes in one side. So I have all my notes with a lot of tags to remember everything. So that's important for you, but also, like you mentioned, if something happens, to have a very clear pattern of the process of the decision maker. Yeah.
And of course, not just for, harassment type issues, but it is a good practice as a scientist, as an engineer, as a project manager, whatever, because sometimes things go wrong with the client, or
and you have to
a regulatory agency, right? And and somebody presents one story, and for you to be able to say, well, no, actually, this is what really happened, and we changed our course because you told us to, and you changed the scope of the work, right? That can save you and your company, millions of dollars, or if things go sideways, even without going for the lawsuit or anything. If you're told to reduce something, or if you follow instruction, they say, oh, no, we didn't tell you to do that. We're not going to pay you for that.
That's important.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, and of course you're doing R&D right now, and I think people sometimes consider water to be very conservative or slow moving or whatever in terms of innovation, and there's a lot of innovation right now. There's talk about how, you know, diversity helps with innovation. Are women getting the opportunities to be part of that innovation, and not just doing the scut work in the back room, but presenting it and say, look at what, you know, this is my innovation. Get, you know, whether it's your IP or whether you at least get the recognition that you created something new. What was it like to create something new as an R&D director?
Yeah, being in like in water engineering, at the end, pumps are pumps, and I always say that we are not like pharmacy companies that everything is like secret. Pumps are pumps, and the theory behind Bernoulli equations are the same, but it's more how you use that knowledge to create a solution for a specific project. In my case, Ingetin is more focused in customized solutions for the pumping industry. So it's not just, we have a catalog, but we don't have like serial pumps. So every design or every equipment we install for a new pumping station is totally customized. The way of when you are customizing everything is like you are innovating all the time, because it's not exactly the same pump you used in the past. You are going to customize for those specific project needs, customer needs. So at the end, you need to, for each project, to use your knowledge for thinking about the best design for that application. So even if at the end, the theory behind is always the same, changing for each project the design of the equipment in order to fit the actual needs, it's, as professional, I think is fantastic. At the end, right now, I'm having, when I went back to the university, that global idea, when you are, because at the beginning, when I first started with pump design, it's like you are designing, having not the global picture of the goal of the design. Once you know the goals and for the project, it's like when you are designing, when you are thinking about the best fit of the blades and the diffuser and things like that, you are focusing having a solution for one specific project. Yeah. So it's like you are more involved in the solution. It's not just like design. At the beginning was more just like CFD calculation. So you were out of the picture. With the years, I've been more involved, and that involvement that is maybe less R&D and more sales, dealing with the customer, in my case, give me a lot of ideas to improve the design. Because at the end, in some cases, it's clear that the solution is more efficient or more, if you really have not misunderstanding with the one that is asking for a solution. Yeah. I always say the most you deal with customers with the utilities or the needs, and more clear you have all the needs in your mind, the better in order to design the best solution. Yeah. Because in some cases there are some miscommunication, you don't have all the points, you don't have all the goals. So at the end, it's a very good pump, but it's not the best one for the project. So the most you deal with the customer, more clear the picture is, or more you know about, for example, all the scenarios of pumping, not just right now, in all the life of the pumping station. It's like having a lot of points in one notebook, and it's like you can imagine what fits for everything. So it's very, at the end, I say that pump design is very, and the pump business and pumping station is very creative. It's not like being a painter, but you have to have like a 3D view of everything and thinking about something unique. I don't know. Right, I don't know.
I love that. By the way, I love the fact that, you know, whenever I film an interview, we always make sure that we can see people's hands, because anyone who's visual spatial, chances are they're talking with their hands, because they're seeing the product or the relationships also.
And also, in my case, when we have meetings, I need to make like drawings. I'm not very good painting by hand, but this is the blade, this is the intake of the pump. I need to explain with with making my notes for the people also. And I have also some of the notes from my early days, and I have there.
With the virtual stuff, and especially with COVID, it has gotten better of having little whiteboards. I know Zoom's got a whiteboard function and all that stuff, and just to have that opportunity to have that direct conversation. One of the delays that we had with getting the summit out is we were talking for months with a PR firm that offered us to have their videographer. They had some young student turned, recent graduate. It was, he's going to do all your videos, and we're going to volunteer your videos, and you're going to support us, and we'll promote us, and we'll support you with the video. And the kid would never actually talk to us. And it's like, no, I don't know what you need to give us detailed instructions of what you want him to do. It's like, I don't know what he knows how to do. And he gives me something that, like, we can do it ourselves in Canva. That's easy. That it's just, anybody can do this stuff. And so it's just, you have to, I think with some of the buyouts of big mega firms buying smaller firms and everything, and some of them are kind of taking out that seller doer component, that have just dedicated salespeople, whether it's at the expo booth or you're in the office and they're running all over the place and doing the sales. And there's a role for that initial contact, but at some point you want the person who's actually going to be involved in working on the project, talking directly, because otherwise it's like it's an operator game, right? And things get lost in translation.
COVID period was an opportunity for learning more about this kind of technology, Teams, Zoom, but nothing is comparable to face-to-face meeting with your team, with your client, with customers, Congress. I've been presenting during the pandemic in different Congress by Teams and making Teams presentation with customers, projects. And at some point when they disconnect the camera, I feel like, I think I'm alone right now. And it was okay because you feel like being connected, and it's very practical to have Teams meeting, working from home at some point, like, because in some cases when I need really being concentrated, I feel more relaxed at home. But it is like an option. Going back to normal and having in this business especially, it's very important. I don't know if you are in software development or other business, you can just be isolated. When you are dealing about multi-team projects with people developing pumps here, the civil construction company maybe is in the US, the installation, you need to have face-to-face meeting, because I'm also very visual with the people. I know that when I'm making, for example, training, I'm giving training about hydraulics, and I see the faces of the people. Maybe they are saying nothing, but I know that maybe the explanation was not really clear for the people, so I need to check the faces. So,
and especially if it's in other cultures where they may not want to interrupt, or maybe not, feel appropriate to ask questions, or you end up with, I mean, in the in the hydrophilanthropy space, we talk about white elephant projects and all these, engineers without borders, water for people, whatever, they're deciding, together some project, and then they go on their spring break and they install it, and it's something that's not appropriate for that location, for that community. It never gets used. People are hanging their clothes on it, like the old I'm looking at the exercycle that I haven't used since I got it, and if you're in that space, you can notice things that people might not have thought to tell you, as, oh, I didn't realize we were close to this, that this is over here, and that this might get in the way. Or I remember once I had a group of engineering students up at Hopkins. We were looking at developing educational tours in the area of conference centers. All these big water conferences were coming to the new, conference centers in Baltimore Harbor. It's this all surrounded by these conference centers on the water, really nice. And there's a lot of cool stuff there. And I was like, hey, let's do a tour and we'll do it at a time when there's a break in the conference and people can, get out, get some exercise, actually see the city they're in, and still get back for the next session. And went up to Hopkins, sat down with the students. We talked about what they're gonna do. It's like, all right, you guys need to find some cool things and start plotting out a tour. And they had plotted it out and sent me a map. And then I went up to ground truth it with them, right? To actually go through the tour. They had never left the classroom. I was like, I'm out here in DC, you're in Baltimore, get off of Google and actually go outside and check it out. And we go to one spot and it was like, it was under construction and there was an overpass. It was so noisy, we couldn't hear to do a presentation at that stop. And so, there's absolutely value in being face-to-face, in ground truthing, and being able to continue the relationship and not rely solely on that face-to-face. We've been doing this conversations to contracts little short course that teaches people, when you go to a conference, before you go, think about what your end game is. Think about what your purpose of going is and what your goals are, what people you want, your purpose, your people's places, where are you going to find them? Can you get in touch with them before you start? So you make plans, try to, even if you can't schedule something exactly, thinking about it, chances are you're going to find them at the coffee shop or whatever in between sessions.
For example, WebTech is a massive conference. You need to have a plan for the days in WebTech if you really have like some goals. At some point, I like WebTech site, but if you really want to deal one by one conversations, small scale conferences are more easy to manage for completing a lot of meetings with people and having conversation, because WebTech is massive. You can't just spend hours just going through the exhibition hall. So at some points, I prefer small, medium-sized conferences. Just to have that plan, because
on leaders or on the technical people, and I think when we went back live, I noticed that some of the conference hosts, I don't know if they were trying to save money or something, but the conference programs, let's see if I have one. Conference programs are a lot thinner than they used to be.
And
ads, but they didn't have all the details. So it'll have like the name of the program in the room, but not who the speakers and the speaker companies. And sometimes you go because you were looking for someone who works for a certain company or a certain utility or a certain whatever. And then you're like trying to flip back and forth and trying to look it up on the app. And it's like
in the app, they rely on. They rely on. I also prefer like the typical program that is a book. You can make your notes in advance. But right now, more or less, they rely on the app, that if it's not working quite well, you miss the information. So it's more complicated. That also, I have also realized that the books for the meeting, for the exhibitions were like this, and right now are like this, 3 pages with a QR code that you need to go to Google and going through the app and then to find the people. So it's more complicated to arrange the schedule in advance, because in some cases, you need the people to be registered in that app in order to start going through connections before going to the conference. So,
and if you're in the audience and you're trying to figure out, okay, wait a minute, do I have time for this next talk? When's my next one? And then if you're sitting there facing the app trying to find your next conference, the person on stage looks at the audience and is like, well, I must have put them all to sleep because everyone's sitting there texting, but you're not. You're trying to find where you're as opposed to just kind of casually glancing down at the book while you're still facing the person on stage.
For example, one of the things that last year I attended, for example, in WebTech, they separate much the exhibition booth from the area of the conferences. So I also, when I attend Congress, when they mix the areas, so you have the exhibition booth, but maybe you have the opportunity of having meeting points in the middle. So not just to separate because in some cases you just running because you are in the exhibition hall and you want to attend one conference, but it's in the other side of the building. So you feel like running just to complete your agenda because you have some goals for every congress. So
and to do that in heels, I haven't worn heels in forever. I don't understand the women who do that on, you know.
There is room to improve in the conferences because when I went to the Desalination Congress in Sydney, they make like the exhibition hall in the middle and all the conference room around the exhibition hall. So the only way of going through one presentation to another presentation was going through the exhibition hall. But it was really easy to go from one meeting to another meeting because it was more like well distributed, all the exhibition booths and the conferences. So you don't really need to run much in hills or in, it's complicated in some cases, and also with the escalator in WebTech, you have different levels for the, you don't know if it's building A, building B, so you need a map, the map is in the app.
The last WebTech we were, was it WebTech? No, I think it was ACE. It was AWWA in San Antonio. And, you know, and you go up and like, there were a bunch of second floor rooms over here, and they have to go down and all the way around. And it wasn't until the last day that I realized that if I went up and around that way, I could have gotten the other, and I wouldn't have to go all the way, go downstairs and around.
Yeah. The conferences are complicated. It's more like a challenge, or it's like a gincana. I don't know. It's like,
you got to get in shape before, folks. If you haven't done conferences, you need to go to conferences, but you need to be prepared, be in shape, carry snacks. You never know if you can get caught someplace. You know, have your water.
Water.
They often give you water bottles that you know, so you don't have to drink bottled water. You can refill your own bottle, but you know, have it in your bag, and just you know, you never know when you're going to not have time to go get something to eat, or they'll place the food. You know, it's kind of like with the casinos in Vegas, right? That all the good stuff is way in the back. You have to go way to the back. I'll be tasking everybody to run out to get your your $10, you know, ham and Swiss sandwich and run all the way back.
Yeah. In the Congress, you need to be prepared for breakfast and maybe at some point the dinner.
Yeah.
And just going through snacks the whole day. Yeah.
I'm something with you, and yeah. So, well, and of course, there's also at those conferences, there's usually things like Women of Water networking events, and you know, and sometimes they even allow actual presentations on diversity where you can present data, and you know, which is a little different from just having, you know, networking circles and stuff like that. But yeah, so it's you know, things have gotten better. We don't have the booth babes so much, or the women in the scanty clothing just to get guys to come over to the booth. But still, that to you know, really make sure these are welcoming spaces for women, and really great to have a chance to meet you. Oh, by the way, we almost forgot to mention you received an award at the Empowering Women in Industry that I was at, even though you were remote coming in on the camera.
Yeah.
What was that award for?
It was a STEM Leadership Award 2022. At the end, I tried to promote girls and women going through technical matters. On, I feel, because at this point I feel that I love what I'm doing, and I try bringing new women to the STEM careers, because I sometimes I used to also do support in the university, and when you go there and you find the numbers, the percentage of the women and the men university more or less are the same as it was when I was there. So I feel, okay, we are changing, but maybe not so much. Yeah. Because I remember when in mechanical engineering we were just 5 women. In engineering, all the disciplines were more or less like 30-70, and more or less right now are equal, but you feel like it's the same. Maybe you see more women in more like not pure mechanical and electrical engineering, other disciplines of engineering, maybe more going to biomedical or things like that, not like the, like I say, the dirty mechanics.
Soft science, yeah, the soft engineering fields, environment,
It's not,
yeah.
I don't know. And at the end, I see that I finished this year. We are going to complete 25 years of anniversary of completing engineering. So 25 years is a lot for not saying many changes in the university. So it's like, okay, things are changing, but
yeah,
too slow.
yeah, yeah. And as someone who's in a position of authority, as a director, you know, when you have opportunities for hiring, you know, not just working with the college kids or, you know, young girls or, you know, women over, you know, for charity projects overseas, but actually in your office, are you looking for women, particularly when, you know, if you don't get a lot of women candidates, do you keep kind of expanding where you're?
I think in the company, we don't really care about, I would like to have, if you check the percentage in the company, I think we are quite equal. And at the end, I think it's more like a matter of the candidate and the profile. In other companies, I see that because of my friends, there are not so many women, but I think I want to think that right now for example, in Spain, when you hire someone, it's because it's just the best candidate, right. Not because that you are not saying no because it's a woman or a man. Right. I think it's a matter of a candidate, but honestly, I would like to bring more women engineers.
And if you're not seeing, I mean, yes, obviously, it's not saying you hire a worse candidate just to hire a woman or Black or whatever, but if you're not seeing as many women candidates at all, or the women candidates you're getting are not, I think are quite.
I think right now are quite equal, and I always explain when I first started, and it's my experience. It's not something that the people have explained to me. I had a very bad experience in an interview when I was just looking for a job. When I finished my studies, I went through an interview in a company, and after 2 hours, they really mentioned to me, "You are the best candidate, but we are not going to hire you because you are a woman." And that's something that resonates inside me. Wow. Honestly, I don't think that is possible and feasible anymore today, legally, or maybe, I don't know. But it's something that really happened to me before coming to Interteam. So because of that experience, I realized that, okay, there is something just because I'm a woman that they are going to take into account if they hire or not to me. Because 2 hours of having an interview with the top level of the company for the final hiring is a lot of time. If after 2 hours you openly say to someone that you are the best candidate, but we are not going to hire you because you are a woman, I was like, how old? I don't know how old I was, 25, 26, more or less. And I was feeling terrible at that point because it's like, okay, I've finished my career, I have good qualifications, I'm a good professional, I have skills, but in the balance, they are also seeing that I'm a woman.
Yeah.
And it's like, why they think that's an issue at all?
Yeah, and you know, recognizing that, you know, it still happens. It is typically less overt because
Is
there are
it?
laws that prevent it. So, they might give you another reason. Sorry, we had so many good candidates. We just, went with someone else, but thank you so much. But then behind the scenes, and this is where allies, for any of the men who are watching, we actually have a trans man on the program who's been both presented as a woman when he started his career and then transitioned, and, to be in the room when those conversations are happening for men to say, now, wait a minute,
Mhm.
know that women can do this. Women are capable of it, and to speak up when those, she's just a diversity hire, and well, I mean, look at what just happened. Okay, at the time that we're recording this, they just had the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank here in the U.S.
Yeah.
And there are actually people writing and saying in the news that Silicon Valley Bank would not have collapsed if they hadn't had a diversity members on their board. If it was 12 white men, they would have made the right decision because they wouldn't be distracted with all this diversity stuff. Actually putting that in writing, and, but recognizing that often those attitudes come up, that if we didn't waste our time on diversity stuff, we could do what really mattered. I had that come up when I posted about some of the stats for this conference in a water professionals group, and some guy said, why are you wasting our time with this stuff? This is about water. Water is serious. We shouldn't be talking about women. I was like, yeah, well, half the population is women.
We are part of the business. Yeah, and I think it's very important to have this kind of women in water conversations, because it's not a matter that we are different, we are equal, and we are not the big percentage of the business. So having a voice also to give an opinion and to show that we are equal and we can provide the same services and we have the same knowledge, is I cannot imagine that why being a woman in this industry could be less important than being a man. I have the same skills, the same knowledge, and at the end, we have to have a voice. We have been underrepresented for years in many companies, many conferences, many congresses, and at the end, we have had experience in the business, so we need to have a voice.
I think that's a great place to end it. And so for all of you out there, share your voice, share your views, type in the comments. We'll be able to see those and respond. Elena will be able to follow up with you. We'll have on the website, what her contact information is and any resources that she cares to share. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your voice. Thank you, Elena, so much for you being here and being part of this conversation.
Thank you so much.
Everybody come on back for all the rest of the summit. We'll see you again soon. Thanks so much for joining us for this extraordinary conversation, one of 45 extraordinary conversations we had as part of the Women of Water Get Real virtual summit, where we explored where and why women are leaking from the water career pipeline, how we can stop those leaks, and even bring women back to water. I hope that you will enjoy all of these amazing interviews. If you don't have a chance to watch all of them during the summit, you have the opportunity to join us with a power pack and get lifetime access to all the videos, as well as an opportunity to join us for 30 days in a brand new community where we will dig even deeper in live facilitated conversations about some of the issues that are facing women in water. Look forward to seeing you there. Please join us at watercitizen.org/women, watercitizen.org/women for more information. See you again soon.